Oh, hi Tracy. Thank you for coming to the event. Yeah, just gonna let a few more people trickle in. We'll probably wait until around 2:05 before starting. But in the meantime, please be sure to scan the QR code to check in, because that's how we'll send the follow-up email, along with the resource infographic if you didn't get it in the previous emails. Thank you guys for coming to the event. We're just waiting for a few more minutes to make sure everybody can trickle in before officially starting. And in the meantime, please be sure to scan the QR code to check in, and the link will also be resent in the chat. Thank you for coming. We're just waiting a few more minutes in order for everybody to trickle in before getting started. Let's give it about 2 more minutes and then we will get started. About 1 more minute and then we will get started. So thank you guys for being patient and for waiting. I think we can probably get started now. And if anybody else comes in, then they can listen in. So, hello everybody. My name is Michelle Akem. I'm currently an events organizer for Technica, and I will be co-hosting this event along with Ananya and Nandini from the Association for Women in Computing for this Getting Linked workshop, which is basically an introduction on how to maximize LinkedIn as well as networking in order to just build your professional brand and show and stand out as an individual when applying for things. So if you haven't already, make sure to scan the QR code to check in. And the link will also be resent in the chat by one of our events organizers. So just as a simple icebreaker to kind of get the mood going, how many of you guys use LinkedIn? And if you want, you can thumbs up with the react or say yes or no in the chat. And we'll wait until we get a few responses for that. Okay, so seeing it's pretty popular, and that makes sense. LinkedIn is basically the flagship media for the professional world. If you think about Instagram and TikTok, LinkedIn is basically the equivalent of that. And because LinkedIn is so prominent, not only for recruiters, but also for students that use it when applying to internships, or even new graduates that use it when applying for their first jobs, we want to make sure that our LinkedIn profile is as optimized as possible and really showcases who we are as a person. But not only that, that we also tie those experiences and our strengths to our target role so that we can align ourselves and make ourselves stand out as a candidate. So that's what we're going to be going through today in this first half of the presentation. So thank you guys for your responses. So the first subsection of this presentation is going to be curating your profile. So we're going to be walking through a sample profile, i.e. mine, and we're going to highlight some important features as well as getting some takeaways on how to make your LinkedIn profile the best that it can be. And just a disclaimer, my profile isn't perfect, and I'll even be highlighting some points where I can improve in my profile. But in this way, I hope you can get some takeaways and get some actionable steps in order to make your profile the best that it can be. Thanks, Maya, for sending the check-in link. So first we have the header. The header is your first impression. It's the first thing that people see when they look at your LinkedIn profile. So it's important that your profile and your header is as optimized as possible. So we'll be going through 3 sections of the header, which will be the background image, the profile pic, as well as the headline. So for my background, I personally used Canva in order to customize my background and kind of showcase little bits of myself and my personality within my header. So for example, the microscope showcases my scientific background because I'm also a biology major, and the operations show my logical thinking, which can be applied in the technical roles that I'm currently seeking now. So if you want, you can customize your background or you can find an image online. But I think the most important thing is that it helps make your profile personable. It puts a personality to a face and it puts a personality to the skills and experiences that you have. So at least the recruiters know that there's a human behind the profile. In addition to the background, there's also the profile pic. And while I was doing research for this presentation, I actually found out that profiles with a profile pic are 14 times more likely to get views compared to those without a profile pic. And so that's really staggering results. And if you want to increase the visibility of your profile, then having a profile pic is one of the first and easiest steps that you can take in order to increase that visibility. For my profile pic, I personally went to one of my school's computer organization events and I got my profile pic taken there. But if your school doesn't have these types of events, I would also encourage using your school's career center because they'll probably have headshot events or resources on how to get those headshots. And even if you can't access that, you can also do a DIY headshot shoot at home. That's what I did for my first headshot that I presented on LinkedIn. And while it wasn't the best, because I prepared myself with things like professional attire, some accessible lighting through maybe something like a lamp, or something like a background, which you can get from a poster at the dollar store, you'll be able to curate your profile pic and make it something that helps you to be presentable to the audience that you're trying to target. And more details on this will be in the um, resource infographic that was sent before the meeting and will also be sent in the follow-up email. So in addition to the background and profile pic, one of the other important parts of the header is the headline. So in my experience, I usually like to keep this concise, but also keep it informative. So you want it to be able to tell a few things about who you are and the most important experiences that you had. So for a student, this can be something simple like, okay, what am I majoring in? What are some organizations that I'm a part of that really showcase who I am as a person? So for me, I could build on this a little more because maybe people don't even know what a Banneker Key Scholar is. But I showcase my diverse background by being both a biology and information science student. So this just gives people a glimpse on, okay, who are you? Who is the person behind the picture? So just to take away from this section, you should remember PIC. So take a pic and remember to make your profile personable, but also informative and concise. And if you have any questions, we'll be having a mini Q&A at the end of the session. The next thing for a LinkedIn profile is the About section, which is a glimpse into your professional personality. So I'm assuming most or all of you guys are in college. And if that's true, then you probably had to write a personal statement to send for your college applications. And while they aren't entirely the same, we can kind of draw on similarities between that personal statement and the About section, in that it has to have structure and it also has to showcase who you are from your past, present, and what you hope to gain. So for me, this is my current About section. There is definitely room for improvement, but I think I found a balance between having that structure, but also highlighting the things that I really want in a future job. So first we have my intro, introducing my background and what I'm passionate about, and what my academic background gives me a suitable role for. So I highlight that I'm good at solving complex problems, and this can be applied to any role. And the experiences and skills are kind of your body paragraphs. So I highlight some of my most notable experiences that tie into the kinds of roles I want, as well as my most prominent skills. And finally, at the end, I highlight a target or a call to action. So I draw on all of these skills and I try to create a synergy between them. So when developing your personal brand, you want to give people a kind of core to come back to. What are your core values? What are your core strengths? And how can that apply to the target job that you're looking for? So what I tie mine into is helping and collaborating with other people. I think I could have also drawn on the problem solving in my target as well. And that could be something I could improve on later. And what I highlight is that I want to focus my efforts on a technology intern role. So now people know, okay, this is my past. This is what I'm currently working on now. And what do I want to direct those skills to? So in my case, it's technology. And then you also have the top skills that you highlight. So just a takeaway, you basically treat the About section as a truncated personal statement. So you show where you've been, where you're at, and where you want to be. And in this way, you're able to showcase your personality, but also define your professional brand and how exactly you want to be viewed by others. The next section I want to talk about is experience. So how have you built the skill set, that you've kind of hinted at in your About experience? So this is an example of some of the experiences that I've had. So breakthrough tech sprinter and laboratory assistant student. Okay, that's all great. But you also have the descriptions beyond these. So these descriptions are really important because they not only tell the audience what these roles are, but also the impact that you've had in these roles. Because anybody can do these tasks, anybody can land a job and do the work that they were assigned to do. But what you really want to highlight is the impact that you've had. Because when you highlight the impact, you make it noticeable to recruiters or maybe any other audience that you're looking for. Okay, how can I translate that impact into something that's relevant for you? So in my case, I quantified the impact that I had. So for my breakthrough tech internship, because it was so short, I focused on the amount of pull requests that I did in the Git environment. And just a bit of background, Git was just a collaborative platform where users could share their code. So because I did more than 30 pull requests, that shows that I'm adaptive. It shows that I had to work through problems with the code and any bugs. And it shows that I was willing to do that over and over again in order to complete an end product by the end of my internship. In addition, I also highlighted some important skills that I learned in my roles, such as semi-quantitative PCR for my laboratory assistant role, or maybe HTML and other programming languages in my code path role. So just some technical background for the experience section. You want to make sure that your experiences are in reverse chronological order, which I believe LinkedIn does automatically. But you also want to use action verbs in order to really make your descriptions have that punch. So for example, I use things like implemented, facilitated, and that just helps bring your LinkedIn profile up a bit more. And you want to quantify. So I touched on that previously. So just a takeaway, you want to align your descriptions to your target job. So these experiences should not just be any random experiences, but they should be experiences that show the skills that you want to apply to anything you have in the future. And you want to quantify these descriptions just so that you can show your impact a little bit better. Finally, the last big section that I want to talk about with the LinkedIn profile is skills. And this is basically what fits you to the role. It's actually pretty important to the LinkedIn algorithm because recruiters on LinkedIn use AI-powered tools to see how a candidate's skill set aligns with the actual job posting. So if you have skills such as Python or teaching, and you apply for a skill or job, sorry, like maybe a Python tutor or just a tutor in general for computing, that will help push your profile above others when recruiters are searching for people to fill that role after they see the applicants. So one activity that I want you guys to do or just think of is to find one job posting on LinkedIn that interests you and then highlight 3 skills that they want. You can find that in the job description and then just find out how you can put that on your LinkedIn profile. And keep in mind that these shouldn't be skills that you don't have because you do have to prove them in the actual role, but they should be skills that are relevant to you. And because they're in the job description, they're also relevant to the recruiter. So in the skills section, I also want to highlight that you want to keep relevancy at the top priority. So you just want to have skills, a few good skills that are relevant to the target job that you want. And you also want to have a good mix of hard skills and soft skills. So not just things like programming languages. And this is for my case, computer science, but you can also do laboratory skills if you're more scientific. You can do engineering skills, graphic design skills as those kinds of hard skills. But you also want to highlight soft skills as well, because these are the things that they can't really teach. So you want to showcase communication, you want to showcase leadership. And beyond that, you also want to make sure, and this is something that I kind of lack in, no, I do lack in because I don't have any, but you also want to try to get endorsements if you can. You want to make sure that you're not just saying these skills, but people that you've worked with also know that you have these skills and can back them up. So this will give you the evidence that you need to show recruiters and show your audience, okay, this person actually knows these skills that they're saying that they know. So yeah, this is the skills section. And just a takeaway, you want to be relevant in your skills. And it's better to have a few well-endorsed skills than just list any of the skills that you have from proficient to basic. And you want to make sure that these skills are really relevant to the target job that you're looking for. Okay, so now that we've finished off the LinkedIn profile walkthrough, I just want to briefly touch on the power of AI. So unless you've been living under a rock for the past 2 years or so, I think you might not have heard of ChatGPT or similar AI platforms. So I think personally, these platforms, can be really useful in order to supplement your existing information in order to create a more appealing LinkedIn profile. And just a disclaimer, these are not meant to replace your thoughts because we want to have a professional brand, but we also want to leave our own personal touch on it as well. So we're not just sounding like a robot, which this is. So you want to use these as kind of a stepping stone in order to make your profile more appealing. So I've included some sample prompts within the slides, and I've also included prompts in the infographic that will be sent later. But just for an example, if you want to optimize your headline, you can say, please help me create a LinkedIn headline that effectively communicates my experience, qualifications, and use my resume to do that. And if you'll notice, all of these prompts kind of use your resume in a way because you're building on that existing information and just making it more appealing and more direct to whatever target role you're looking for. So that's why in the resource infographic that I sent, I also included a section on how to optimize your resume. And you can do that through going through your school's career center because they provide a lot of resources through advising on how to make that more polished. You can also ask a peer, a friend, or a mentor who you trust to review your resume. And in this way, you can kind of build on a solid foundation in order to optimize your LinkedIn profile. So yeah. So now that we've gone through that walkthrough and just that brief sideway on AI, we're going to talk about building your brand on LinkedIn using other features. So taking advantage of things like posts as well as LinkedIn Learning. So if you've been on LinkedIn, you might have noticed that people often post things like, oh, I've just gotten an internship for blah, 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 or it's been 3 weeks since I've started this new job. And this isn't just for show. They're showing their connections and their network that they're actually doing work, actionable things at these companies, and they're learning lessons from it. So the most important thing about posting is highlighting your professional achievements, but also doing it in a way that is actually valuable. So whether you're providing value to yourself through the lessons that you're learning, or you're providing value to others in your post, it's really important that these posts are targeted and not just done any which way. So if you can see, we have a description of one of our other events organizers, Meilin Yuan's experience in the Quest Honors Program at UMD. So she's showing the lessons that she learned, the team that she was working with, and she was also showing just a background of what the Quest Honors Program actually is. So you want to introduce the thing that you're talking about, showcase the lessons that you learned, or showcase recommendations that people had for you so that you can take those away and become a better worker later. So some post ideas that we have are personal projects, professional development events, achievements, or even any new credentials that you have. So for example, these new credentials could be certifications, which you can get on LinkedIn Learning, which we'll talk about later, or just any classes that you've taken that provides relevant skills that you want to showcase. So yeah, this is an example of one of the types of posts that you can do on LinkedIn. And these will really help to establish yourself as the person that you want to become and the person that you already are. Finally, I also want to talk about LinkedIn Learning, which is a really cool resource if you want to learn new skills that you will then put on your profile or are really important to your target role. And these are actually free as a UMD student. You can go into Handshake, which is where our career center is located, and you can go through the link that they have there in order to log in with your UMD account, and you'll be able to access a ton of courses for free. And if you aren't a UMD student, your career center probably provides a similar resource. And if not, LinkedIn Learning also provides free courses as well. And this is a really good way to, on your own free time, maybe you've had a skill that you've always wanted to learn or a skill that's relevant to your current job, but you don't really have any other ways to get those outside in the real world. You can see that from an example course called Power BI. You can have a really detailed lesson plan that will walk you through an introduction, as well as the different details that are you can also collect a certification for the course that you've done. So this is really helpful to kind of show off that you've actually completed the course and you've built that proficiency in the skill that you've wanted. So this is also a really cool resource to just help with learning. And yeah, this is the end of the LinkedIn session. So does anybody have any questions on anything that we just talked about? Or if not now, feel free to save it for the end of the presentation. Okay, sounds good then. Thank you guys for listening to this part of the presentation. And now we will be moving on to networking tips with the Association for Women in Computing. So I'll be passing it off to Ananya and Nandini.
Thank you, Michelle. So, hello everyone. My name is Nandini, and I'm here with my Ananya. And we're really excited to be here with you guys and share all of our networking tips that we have for LinkedIn. And we're thankful to Technica for allowing us to share our tips with you guys and talk to you. So, as a quick introduction, as I said, my name is Ananya, and I'm here with my co-president, Ananya. And we are both rising senior computer science students here at the University of Maryland. And we are also the co-presidents of the Association for Women in Computing. And for those of you who haven't heard of us before, we are an organization at UMD that strives to promote inclusivity in tech by giving underrepresented genders at UMD the platform and community to thrive and succeed in. And so we host various types of events. We have sponsored events where you can network with our corporate sponsors. We have educational events that you can learn out of classroom tech skills from. And we also have bonding and social events that allow you to bond over good food and activities. So if you are a prospective or current computer science student at UMD and you're interested in joining AWC, Ananya will drop the link to our Slack in the chat at some point, and feel free to join it if you're interested in getting updates from us. And so now I'll hand it off to Ananya to get started on our networking tips.
Yep, thank you, Nandini. I will drop the link in the Slack towards the end of the presentation. To get into the tips that we have here today, it's building off of Michelle's wonderful organization and step through of how to build a strong profile on LinkedIn. Now, once you have that in place, you want to make sure that you take all the other precautions necessary before you start cold DMing people of interest on LinkedIn. So the first step to cover is practice safety. Scrutinize your connections, follows, and requests. Next slide, please. Yep. So in order to do this, the best way is to navigate to your profile on the left-hand corner. There's a section with your statistics of your profile viewers and your connections. With profile viewers, if you click on the number, you can see the top 5 people who have visited your profile within the last week, which we show later. And with connections, similar idea. And this is with the assumption that no one has LinkedIn Premium. If you have LinkedIn Premium, obviously you can go into it and check all the profile viewers and actually see their identities. But with the assumption that working with the free plan, if we go to the next slide, we can see what we can do with those numbers. So you can draw your insights from at least those top 5 viewers, your most recent viewers. So in this example, we can see you have 3 people who might have seen your profile from the University of Maryland. In my case, this would be very helpful. I know these are people, maybe students, fellow peers, staff, anyone who might be interested and knows that I'm in this community. I also have 2 people who work from BNY Mellon, which is the place that I'm currently working at, so at my company. So this is also a good thing. This means that these are people who actually exist, people who are relevant to my network. And below, I see other names and sources which might be of interest for future career mobility. So when you're looking at these names, like we mentioned, you want to make sure they make sense. Are they relevant to you? You may be able to see who they are, maybe not by their individual names, but from their company. And the third thing is, if you see names that strike out to you, if you're planning on working for Lockheed Martin or any of the companies that you might come across or individuals, that could be of interest, you know you're targeting the right people. So this is a good way to practice safety, but also practice who you're target audience might be at the moment. Next slide, please. Another thing you can also do is practice housekeeping. So with these insights, it's good to make sure that you can clean out any irrelevant connections that you may have. Some accounts may have been hacked. You may not know that at the time that you followed them or connected with them, they might have been somebody, but those accounts could have been deactivated, not in use. It's a good thing to just make sure that you follow this checklist, that can I trace my relationship to this person still through that first tier, second tier? Do we have benefits in terms of, could I help them out or can they help me out? Obviously, it doesn't always have to be transactional, but it's a good thing to keep in mind on LinkedIn. And is their profile still clean? If it's been deactivated, you might see a lot of dashes, a lot of empty brackets, poor language, and it's good to make sure that you clean those out so you're no longer representing them on your profile. Next slide, please. So the next thing that we want to cover with networking on LinkedIn and preparing for working one-on-one with people is to gather your endorsements. Michelle was mentioning earlier that there's a skill set section on your profile, and on there, it's good to have endorsements. So if we go to the next slide, we can see those. So over here, you want to always incorporate the most relevant and important skills that you want to showcase for your next career move. And with that, you can always link organizations that you might have gained these skills from. Over here, Microsoft Teals is a volunteering organization program. So soft skills such as community outreach or teaching or mentoring isn't really that easy to showcase through your regular classes or day-to-day organizations, but listing skills from your clubs or student orgs, or even just other programs that might be integrated in, that is a good thing to have. And when you click on these credentials, you can always check out the organization. For example, Microsoft definitely has a great reputation as a tech company and as a philanthropy-focused organization. If you go to the next slide, you can check who's actually doing those endorsements. So sometimes it could be the company itself, but also it could be individuals who are doing the endorsements. So with presentation skills up here, you see that it's from University of Maryland. So credential or credibility comes from the university. But also if you click on your endorsements, you can check out the actual person. It'll show up just like a connection or as a follower. You want to apply the same skills that we saw from the bullet one. Make sure that they're valid, make sure that they're not scammers. You can do that just by making sure they have a name, they have a profile picture, etc. And if you don't have endorsements, an easy way to do it is start DMing people. Or you can also just reach out to friends and family on LinkedIn and connect with them and just ask, hey, I know you're pretty good at this skill. You know me. I'm working on this at this so-and-so organization. Do you mind just giving me an endorsement on LinkedIn? I'll be more than happy to rep you on my file as well. Easy way to gain your endorsements. They're not the end all break all, but they're very good to have on your profile. Can we go to the next slide? Yep. And here, just covering specific features of LinkedIn. You can also always edit that. You may not want everyone to know this person. If you don't want to be seen by everybody, you can always hide that endorsement. The toggle here lets you turn off endorsements so they're not permanent, but helps you make sure you can optimize how you look to potential viewers at any moment in time. And as a reminder, your LinkedIn profile is always evolving. It's never stagnant. It should not be one time post everything and leave it there. You want to keep constantly adapting when you are moving or transitioning between different organizations, or for most relevant for us, from student to new grads or maybe even grad school. This is a good place to make sure that you can keep it evolving. And I'll hand this off to Nandini to cover our third bullet in networking tips plus on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Ananya. So this next few set of slides are to kind of cover if you've gone to a point where, say, you've taken all Michelle's tips in regards to having a profile picture, having a good header, having a good bio, but you still feel like when you reach out to your network on LinkedIn, whether it comes to cold reaching out to your contacts, that you're still not really getting a response back, or you're not getting the response that you want, kind of some next steps in what you would do at that point will be what we'll cover now. So we can go to the next slide. The first thing that you want to do is to use the network and tools that you have at your disposal. And so the main thing is that you want to compare LinkedIn profiles and also to talk to some of your peers. So our first bullet here is to check other people's LinkedIn profiles out. I think that the good thing about LinkedIn is that you can see everyone's profile. You can see people who may be working in positions that you ideally want to work in one day. You can see people's profiles who are at companies that you really admire. And so you can kind of see their career trajectory, as well as maybe the way that they describe certain positions that may be similar to you. You can see what the trajectory was in order for them to get where they wanted to go. And you can also see their bio and their header and the way that they present themselves to see from your perspective if it looks eye-catching, because chances are is if it looks eye-catching to you, then it probably is also eye-catching to a recruiter or someone of your interest. And so just check what works for them and what sets their profile apart, and try to take inspiration and take advantage of the fact that you can kind of see openly how they present themselves, and consider how you might want to apply some of those things to your own profile. And then the second thing we recommend is to consider getting feedback from your peers. And so some things you want to check, you want your peers to check would be if your profile appears professional, as well as what general areas of improvement that they would consider you make. You may think that from like the look of your profile that it looks professional and very presentable, the grammar is accurate, but there's sometimes things that you may not catch when you look at it. But when you have someone else who looks at it with a different set of eyes and perspective, they can catch some things that you may not have thought of. And so this is a good way for you to improve your profile and see why you may not be getting back the responses that you want. And also the other thing you could also consider looking at from your peers is how cold DMing looks different from them. So if you're noticing that some of your friends are able to contact recruiters via LinkedIn and get responses back, consider looking at the way that they're talking to recruiters and reaching out to them, and consider if the language that you're using is different and how you might change the way that you approach recruiters. So these are some things that you can consider in terms of utilizing your network as well as your own self in order to improve your LinkedIn. And then for our next slide, the good thing is at the University of Maryland, if you're here, that they have a really strong career counseling department, but also at other schools and high schools as well, they also have resources that you can use. So I would really recommend going to your school's career center. And so on Handshake for UMD, you can see that they do have LinkedIn profile reviews. And so if you schedule an appointment with someone, you can end up getting your profile reviewed by a professional and someone who's very acclimated to reviewing resumes, cover letters, and profiles. And so it's a really good way for you to learn what steps you need to take with your profile to get it to the edge that you want it to be. And so with that, that concludes our portion of the presentation. We thank you guys for listening. And at this point, we can take any questions that you may have regarding either of the segments that you've witnessed.
Feel free to unmute, or if you don't want to talk, just feel free to leave it in the chat as well. And a heads up, the link for joining AWC Slack is also dropped in the chat.
Okay, I have a question. And any one of you who relate to this can answer this. But have you been able to use any networking skills to help land an internship, and what skills were kind of used to help land that? Maybe reaching out to someone, or somebody reaching out to you based on your profile or something like that.
Nani, do you want to go first, or
Yeah,
I guess we can both have experiences.
I can start off. So I've had a few companies reach out to me on LinkedIn, where I was able to schedule a phone call with them and move forward in the application process in general. And I think the biggest thing that helped me to get to that point is just by having a very up-to-date LinkedIn, and also I had LinkedIn Premium at the time, and I've noticed that if you have about above 500 connections and LinkedIn Premium, LinkedIn does push your profile more to people who are interested in profiles that you have. So I think those steps were really helpful in allowing me to connect with people who were important.
Yeah, I think on my end, I've kind of cold DM'd some people as follow-up. I personally believe obviously an in-person interaction is more valuable than someone just randomly flooding your inbox. So if I've went to any like recruiting fairs or any career fairs at UMD, in order to follow up afterwards, I would use LinkedIn to reach out and just thank them for their time, give them a quick reminder of like what we talked about, and just ask them for any other opportunities that are upcoming or just a way to keep in touch. And I think that's been very useful for me to have a professional ongoing relationship with recruiters.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I just want to add on that before we move on to Ginger's question. I wouldn't say that I haven't gotten an internship from networking yet, but I have used it in order to kind of email people that I'm interested in and who I've had a previous connection with, which I think is also pretty important, like reaching out to those warm contacts that you've maybe interacted with once before. And I think some things that are really important is to remind the person of your previous connection, talk to them about what you want, and then providing that bridge to kind of connect with them on a first basis and then also connect with them afterwards. So keeping that relationship going is what I think is really important because it leaves like kind of a landline to when you are interested in those roles in the future, you can reach out to them and they'll be able to get you to have like an additional stepping stone.
Okay, thank you so much. Love that advice.
No problem. So yeah, Ginger, you have a question?
Yeah, my question was for someone who's younger, like as a rising sophomore, at what point should you be removing things from high school, or do you just keep them up, um, like for all of college? Like at what point should you just be limiting it to more recent, job or like volunteer, experiences?
Uh, I can answer this first, and then Ananya and Nandini, if you guys have anything else to add, you can also add it. For me personally, I waited until uh, I think after my first semester of sophomore year to kind of remove those high school experiences because at a certain point it gets to there's kind of an assumption that you've built enough relevant experience within college that you can kind of use those alone to bolster your LinkedIn profile or just your resume in general. But I think that if you feel like you may not have enough experience in college currently, you can still include one or two high school experiences that are really relevant to the role or just like the position that you're looking for. And you can highlight the skills that you've built in those roles that can be relevant and have also been built by maybe your current college experiences. So kind of making your high school experiences relevant to the current job is what's most important. So not just putting any experiences. I think that's kind of the advice that I would give for that.
Yeah, I think Michelle put it in a very clear and covered all the bases for that question. I guess if in my experience, keeping things from high school, I had it on my LinkedIn profile until I had at least two or three other things I could include, which could be student organization involvement in your college. And I think if you're able to have at least one leadership position in college, that's a good sign to remove things from high school because I think they'll overshadow things like that you might have done from high school, if that makes sense.
And I
Okay,
don't have
thank
anything,
you.
I think. Does anyone have any other questions? You can feel free to put in the chat or raise your hand or speak up.
I think that's all the questions then. So that will be the end of our presentation. We're ending a bit earlier, but that means you guys can go and enjoy your Saturday. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen into this presentation. Thank you, Nandini and Ananya, for also participating in this presentation. And thank you to the events team for being so supportive. So we'll stop recording at this point, and we'll send up a follow-up email after we end the Zoom. Thank you. And also another link to the resource infographic that I made a few references to, if you didn't already receive it in the first reminder email for this event, just so that you can have some takeaways that you can use to build your LinkedIn profile and just help with networking. And I hope these tips helped. So I'll stop sharing now.